Hey guys, K2's Retro Workshop. Today, we're going to compare the Quadra 700 and the Mystic Color Classic. The reason I'm comparing these two, they came out at very different times. So the Quadra 700 is a more early 90s type setup. The LC575 and Color Classic here is more of a mid-90s setup. So the cost comparison between these two when they were new doesn't really hold up. This is a $5,700 machine. This would have been like a $1,700 machine if it was a 575. But I'm curious as to just how they compared today. With modern upgrades, what we would pay for them today, what kind of performance gap is there, and is there a usability gap between the two? These two machines are very similar. I've tried to make everything as close as possible to the same between them. Same SD cards, same hard drive image. Both running Blue SCSI version 2s with the most recent firmware. And the only real difference between them is this guy's got 36 megs of RAM, and this guy has 68 megs. And then we've got 1 meg of VRAM over here, and 2 megs of VRAM over here. Now, running 256 colors at 640 by 480, the VRAM doesn't matter between the two. So we don't have to worry about that. And the drive image that I have doesn't really have enough on it to utilize enough RAM to cause a bottleneck there either. So let's fire these guys up and let's have them race booting up real quick. So I'm going to hit the power button on both of these. Color Classic's a little slower to chime, but now we just wait for him to boot. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to sit here dead air. There's quite a bit of memory in both of these, so they take a little bit of time to do the memory check. The Color Classic finishes it first because it only has 36 megs. And as you can see, it's already begun booting. And the Quadra just fired up the monitor, so it's done counting its RAM. I could make this one a lot more annoying if I stuck a 128 meg memory stick in it. It takes about a minute and a half for it to finish the memory check if I do that. But these guys are pretty close. They're pretty close. Let's see. Oh, they're both done. So they finished about the same time. So they have nearly identical boot speeds. This guy's a little bit faster. It was a little slower on the startup. If I go here to about this computer, we can see we've got 8.7 megs of memory being utilized here, and I'll just do it on both of them. It's easier to see on this screen because it's much bigger. That's one of the downsides to the Color Classic when it comes to that. So here we have our benchmarks. We've got processor, floating point, disk, and graphics. Those are going to be the main ones that we're going to focus on here, comparing these two machines. The slower processor, 27 and 27%, that's just the 040 on both of these machines. It is what it is. The PowerPC processor is just so much quicker at executing almost anything, so we end up faster there. The red bar here is the Quadra's 66 megahertz PowerPC upgrade, and the blue one is the upgrade over here. The difference between those, the 16%, can be explained away by the Mystic has 256K of level 2 cache, while we have a meg of level 2 cache over here in the Quadra. I can't tell you what's going on with the floating point benchmark, however. Benchmarks have been kind of weird and have actually changed what this entire video is about, and I will elaborate that in the next section. But according to this benchmark, that machine is 30% faster at floating point rather than the Quadra. Can't tell you why that is the case. Yeah, I don't know. The Mystic having a 1% is just because this is not a fat 040. It's a small chassis. I don't do floating point stuff on that machine anyway, so I just left it. I have a floating point 040 that could go in there, but no, whatever. So there we go. The floating point in the 040 is weak as heck anyway compared to the PowerPC. If I need to do some number crunching, I can just boot up in the PowerPC mode over here and be done with it. Now the disk benchmark. This benchmark has actually changed what this entire freaking video is supposed to be about. Because up until 3 days ago, when I went to run a disk benchmark on the Color Classic, that was my result. For some reason, something I have changed over the last few days has significantly increased the hard drive performance of this machine. I was ready to totally dog on the LC side and say that something is going on over there that makes it ridiculously slow compared to the Quadra. Something's missing in their ASICs, all that other garbage, right? Turns out it was probably just me causing the problem with a configuration or something. I know I had disk cache turned on for this. I can't tell you what it was. Whatever. Either way, we can go in and remove that from the graph because it is obviously not the result. But like I've said, I originally started filming this intending for there to be a huge performance difference. And I will actually show you right now a clip of them booting against one another that I filmed at the beginning of this whole thing to show you just how much slower it was. Watch. Unbelievably quick, right? This is done. We're at the desktop with our icons. We are done. I can go to About This Computer while we wait for Grandma over here to finish. We're only using 8.7 megs. Did you see that? Totally different than what we had. Like, so frustrating. Anyway, disk performance, this is both of these are just way faster than the 6160 comparison system that's on here. Just any of the hard drive based systems. These are definitely solid state drives. They're really quick. The 040, unsurprisingly, gets a little bit better performance than the PowerPC upgrade does. Again, this comes from a bus difference between the two, just like the 386DX versus the 386SX. When you have to fill a register in an SX, you have to transfer in twice at 16-bit to fill a 32-bit internal register. The 64-bit PowerPC processor has to transfer twice over the 32-bit bus. The Pentium overdrive in a 486 has the same issue. So while in the core we're much faster, externally we are a little bit slower. Now, I think the graphics benchmark that this does is an excellent example of how much this disk or this I/O limitation really matters. We can brute force our way through this slowdown by just processing much quicker. And in the end, we wind up with systems that are pretty dang equivalent to one another, to be honest. The two PowerPCs are down here, and the two 040s are here. The 040 in the Quadra's a little bit faster, and that's most likely due to the 1 meg of level 2 cache versus 256K that this guy has. But between the PowerPC and the 040 processor in this machine, there's a 1% difference. And on that machine, there's a no % difference. I'm guessing there's a bit of a rounding issue there. Maybe there's only 0.5% difference in this guy, and, whatever. So, they're very similar to one another. So shockingly similar to one another that when it comes time to decide that you want an 040 machine and which one of these you should go for, there's a lot of other stuff we need to be looking at. So gaming, both of these machines, excellent for games. Both smooth, everything. Now, we do remember we are talking about a Mystic Color Classic here. And the price point here is not the same price point as here. And I will get into that after we've talked about some of the other stuff here to compare between the two. When it comes to games, gaming is probably one of the better things to do with the Mystic Color Classic, especially with the VGA mod, because it can get hard to see text over a long period of time with the small Color Classic screen versus the Quadra. Let me pull something up and demonstrate that. Alright, so here's the Rashi README. I'm not sure how well it conveys on film, but this is a lot smaller. And it's not nearly as sharp and clear as this screen, and this isn't even a Trinitron monitor. You go up to, say, a 19-inch or something like that, and I can just show you here real quick. If we go to monitors here, you're stuck at 640 by 480 over here. But if I have a large monitor over here, so I can do 832 by 824 and put a flash fest on for you real quick. And it's a similar size now on the screen, but there's so much more we can work with here. And it really does increase the potential productivity of a machine by having that. So what I'm going to do here is go back to monitors and not try to hurt people's eyes. And here, yeah, we could select millions of colors if we want, but I think we can also do millions of colors over here because we do have a mega VRAM over there. I just don't tend to do it because everything complains. Games all complain that you got to go to 256 colors again, so I just leave it in 256 colors so I don't have to mess with it. On the PowerPC side of gaming, it's not as clear as to what you can and can't play. Diablo, for example, here loads. You can see the cursor isn't very smooth. If I click up here on both machines, she's moving, but it's not smooth. That's definitely not the optimal way to play this. So, because it's only 66 megahertz on either of these machines, it's very easy to get caught not being able to play a game like this. Now, if one of these was a 100 megahertz model, especially with a 1 meg of cache, then we could most definitely play this game without any issues on these. But as it stands, this is best left to a faster machine, maybe like a 6260 or honestly any of the 6000 series would probably work fine. 100 megahertz or more, but Mac system requirements didn't usually say a processor speed when it was talking about minimum requirements, so Diablo just says PowerPC, and that's it. That's the entirety of the specification for it. So there you have it. Video performance. How do these play full screen video? They actually do a surprisingly good job. I'm quite impressed with the full screen video playback capability of these machines. Oh, we have mute one. I can't mute one. A little bit of an echo because I wasn't perfect in getting them started at the same time. But it's smooth, high frame rate, no audio glitches. They do a great job. Yeah, if you want to watch VCDs or whatever on these, go for it. We could watch the whole thing, but we're not going to. So where do we sit with these two machines? It's personal preference. Honestly, I would prefer this motherboard in a 575, if I'm being totally honest. The Color Classic does have its own charm. I have two of them. I'm keeping both of them. I do like those machines, especially with all the work I've put into them. The Quadra 700, I almost expected a bit different from this, but for now it stays. It's going to go well with my SGI Indigo in a little Jurassic Park setup or whatever, which I get to work on next. And they play games really well. They're good machines. The Color Classic, okay, let's be real. Color Classic is a lot of work. You have a full analog board you need to recap. You have a motherboard you have to recap. When it comes to recapping the Quadra 700, you have a power supply. That's it. Both of these machines, the Color Classic and the Quadra, are probably going to run you between $300 and $400 if you buy them online. I was very patient. This actually came to me as a bare chassis, and I had the motherboard already. So this machine was cheaper to build. If you're patient, set up your safe searches, stuff like that, you can get a good deal on these things. Neither one of them have CD drives, but with the Blue SCSI version 2, that's not an issue. Actually, if I can show you real quick, if we come over to the SCSI tools here, there's a program called Blue SCSI CD Changer. So I can go from the Diablo CD to the MacBench CD by just clicking a button. And there it is. That's mounted. So you can have a whole list of ISOs here you want to switch between and easily go between them. So the lack of CD drive isn't really a big deal. I'm starting to see more and more how similar these machines are. PowerPC upgrades. There's a good one. Over here, you're looking at 800 plus for the PowerPC upgrade. If you don't believe me, go look at the ones that have sold recently. This PowerPC upgrade I got for I think 350 bucks. Probably one of the more expensive things I've actually spent money on in this hobby. But yeah, it's much more readily available, and so as a result, it is cheaper to do a PowerPC upgrade over here versus over here. As far as upgrades go, the Quadra 700 wins hands down. When you've got the PowerPC upgrade over here, you can't use the PDS slot at all. So you're stuck with the COM slot for Ethernet, which is what I did, and then that machine's maxed out. You can't do anything else. This machine, even with a PowerPC upgrade, still has an open new bus slot, and without a PowerPC has 2 new bus slots that you can use, or a PDS slot that you can then throw something into. And I don't know. Overall, I feel like the Quadra 700 is probably the better value. So if you're looking for a machine to max out or whatever, there's definitely more to max here. But at the end of the day, you're building a similar machine, because remember, just acquiring these machines is going to be almost $400. You need another $400 roughly to get a good 575 logic board to put into the Color Classic. So this ends up being a $800 machine at base model, where this one is only like a $300 to $400 machine, and the crystal to upgrade this is like a few bucks. So it's cheap to get it up to 33 megahertz, and then you basically have the same machine, only this one can use a bigger monitor, and you can be more productive on it, whatever that means these days and age. But there's a lot more options for upgrades on the Quadra 700 that the Macintosh Classic doesn't have. Tell me in the comments below, what are your opinions on these two machines? Which one would you prefer? Are there any cool upgrades that you would like to see me continue to do on these machines? And any future shootouts or comparison videos or anything like that that you'd like to see. This has been just a screen full of beige, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a fun little hobby. It can be. This machine will test that, and your soldering iron if you get the right one. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.